Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another discussion video. Today I want to talk about all things Towa coming out of the Ultimate deck. It's a deck that I've really been enjoying testing. I do have a build that I like at the moment, but honestly I didn't want to go that route. I didn't want to do a deck profile because this deck and this strategy is so customizable that I'm not like saying I have the 100% best build. More so in this video, I basically want to go over what the Towa stuff does and talk about the many different ways you can customize it, because in my opinion that's one of the coolest things about this Ultimate deck that they've created. It's one of the real fun things that I love when Bandai does. I love when they do this. They leave an archetype, even one confined to a structure deck that you would think would be just like tied to a structure deck stuff, only playable within its own structure stuff. It's so creative. I love it. So we'll just go into it in the video, guys. If you're new here, definitely subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. If you want to help the channel out, go down in the description. There are many links that will help out, one of which today, guys, you can use my link to TCG Player if you want to buy any of the cards we talk about in this video or pre-order them. That being said, let's jump right in. So like I said, we're gonna go over today what the Towa stuff does. We'll do it kind of briefly because I know a lot of you guys have had time to read through this stuff, but I do just want to point out some things here. So the Towa Unawakened Leader has the same permanent on both sides as the Awakened side. So treat Dark Broly cards with original energy costs of 9 or less in your hand and non-black battle cards with Xeno in their character name and original energy costs of 9 or less in your hand as if they had no specified cost, and reduce their energy cost by 1. So basically, it's a very long-winded way of saying that anything within the Xeno realm, including Dark Broly's, because Dark Broly doesn't really have Xeno in its character tag, all that kind of stuff is basically colorless and all reduced by 1 cost. Now that doesn't really matter in terms of the Dark Broly's because they're generally all 6 cost. It does actually matter for 1 Dark Broly, which we will talk about, but yeah, that's really important to know there, that you're basically playing a colorless deck with all the Xeno stuff, and that's one of the reasons why it's so customizable. So the auto on the Unawakened side, when this card attacks, you can take up to 1 life and then draw 1 card. I love the optional Self-Awakening. Actually, in this deck there are a lot of reasons why you'd want to get Self-Awakened. We'll talk about that in just a second. When you can awaken at 4 or less life, draw 1, untap 1. On the back side, when this card attacks, draw 1, it gains plus 5k. The plus 5k is always a really nice thing to see. And the auto once per turn, very reminiscent of starter deck Vegito. So when one of your Dark Broly cards or non-black battle cards with Xeno in its character name are removed from the battle area by an opponent's skill, draw 1. So you don't really get that on KO, but a lot of your stuff they're gonna have to use skills to remove. We'll talk about that more as we get into the video. So that, with that in mind, this ability should trigger quite a lot of the time. So we have Dark Shenron Tyrannical Savior. In my opinion, this Unison has been stellar. Like, I see some builds not playing it, but I think that this Unison really allows you to play the toolboxy type of game that Towa wants you to play, and I'll explain why. So the activate main says choose Dark Broly with original energy cost of 9 or less, or 1 non-black battle card with Xeno in its character name and original energy cost of 9 or less in your hand or drop area. Place it at the bottom of your deck. If the card you placed was from your hand, draw 1 card. So right then and there, just a minor spoiler, there are ways to play the Xeno guys out of your deck, and you have a pretty selective ability to do that. You can kind of call the one that serves your purpose in the right scenario. So if you draw that card which you want to play from the deck, you use the +1 on the Unison, put it back into your deck, and then you draw a new card, which is great. Likewise, let's say you're playing against hand control, or you used up that card you wanted to play from the deck, this Unison also allows you to recur it from the drop area. You don't get a draw, but you still get +1 on the Unison. And by the way, this thing being a 1 energy 16k is incredible. Like, obviously it falls in line with all the Shenron stuff we've seen where it can't attack, it can't really be aggressive, which is totally fine. We're not really playing an aggro deck here. I think we're playing more of like a mid-range that can pivot to aggro, but also can play a bit of a long stally game. It's very much a good hybrid in that sense. So I like the Unison for that reason. The -3 is also great when you can pull it off. If your leader's a Towa card and you have 4 or more energy, at the start of your main phase, choose up to 3 non-black battle cards with an energy cost of 3 or less and Xeno in the character name, and or Dark Broly cards from your deck or hand, play them, then shuffle your deck if you look through it. So being 16k already makes this thing somewhat difficult to deal with. Like, regular 15k attackers, 15k leaders can't do damage to this thing inherently. It is a little bit of a slow marker buildup, but playing it from turn 1 and getting to that turn 4 with the -3, it's definitely very, very doable against the right matchup. So I think this Unison's an MVP. It's really great. Then we have Dark Dragon Balls, though, another starter deck card, or I guess I should say Ultimate deck. This card's excellent in the deck as well. This card gains Dark Dragon Ball in all areas. There is a way to search this we'll talk about. Activate main, if your leader card is a Black Demon Realm race card, look up 7 cards from the top of your deck, add up to 1 Dark Broly card, non-black battle card with Xeno in its character name, or Black Unison card with 16,000 power among them to your hand, then shuffle your deck. You can't activate main on copies of this card for the turn. So this thing searches pretty much your entire deck. What's really cool about this is it searches your Unison, which oftentimes there aren't great ways to search your Unison. Like most of them are top 5 searches, and only having 4 copies on a top 5 search is relatively hard to hit. But also, there are 2 secret rares that fit this description that this thing can search, which honestly is kind of crazy. So really good to note there. You can search your SCRs as well as your Unison. So moving along here, this is more of like the main deck stuff that comes with the ultimate deck stuff that I think you pretty much should play no matter what build you're going for. Lord Slug, the Shadow Warrior, combos with Lord Slug, Unbridled Might, and here's how that happens. So keep in mind, a 2-cost Lord Slug here is actually a 1-cost in our Towa deck because of our leader's permanent. Unique, blocker, auto, pay 1 if your leader card's a Black Demon Realm race. When this card's removed from your battle area by an opponent's skill or KO'd, so there's your blocker getting it KO'd right there. Play up to 1 Lord Slug Xeno with energy cost of 9 from your deck, then shuffle your deck. Now here's the Lord Slug Xeno with energy cost of 9. Energy exhaust, unique, blocker, EX evolve for 2 energy. You draw 1 over a Lord Slug with Xeno with energy cost of 2, so you can Xeno evolve this right over this other Lord Slug, but generally you want to play it with the 2 drops effect. Auto once per turn when this card KOs an opponent's battle card or activates its blocker skill, switches card to active mode, so getting that double block is really good. Auto when this card is removed from your battle area by an opponent's skill, choose up to 1 card in your opponent's hand and up to 1 of their battle cards, place them in the owner's drop areas, then choose up to 1 of your opponent's using cards and remove 2 markers from it. So this thing isn't like game ending, right? You would think playing a 9-drop on turn 2 is like sometimes game ending, like aggressively or like control wise. This thing is just a big blocker with really solid effects if your opponent removes it. So think about it, getting to your awakened side and getting this guy down, like your opponent gets punished heavily for removing it, but realistically they kind of have to remove it because what are they going to do? Try and get around 2 blockers to try and kill you every turn? Like they have to remove this thing, and if they do, they're going to reap some really negative benefits from that. So it's a really cool way they designed this card in my opinion. Like I like stuff like this where it gets around counterplay, like not that, I guess not that charismatic villain hits this or that this works against Trunks, but basically just interruption in general, removal. I like that this thing doesn't just have barrier. I like that it can be removed, but your opponent, you know, gets a negative effect from that. That's really, really cool design in my opinion. Majin Buu, the Shadow Warrior. This card honestly is kind of stupid. So again, keep in mind in Towa, it's actually a 3-cost, not a 4-cost. Unique, barrier, auto once per turn. When this card's played, look at the top 7 cards of your deck. Play up to 1 Dark Broly with energy cost of 9 or less, or up to 1 non-black battle card with Xeno in its character name and energy cost of 9 or less among them, then shuffle your deck. So you can actually also go into this 9-drop Lord Slug off of Buu, but generally the curve is like play a 1-drop on 1, which we'll see in a second, then play Slug on 2, block with Slug, pay the other energy to play this 9-drop from the deck. And this Buu is one of the reasons why your deck can be so toolboxy, because you look at the top 7 and play almost any Xeno card from your deck. So there are other great targets for this card we'll see in just a bit. And then auto once per turn if this card's in rest mode. When your opponent attacks the leader card, they choose 2 cards in their hand and discards them. So this is realistically, it's a deadly defender. No, it doesn't stop your leader from being attacked, but your opponent has to pitch 2. So it's almost like this deck's version of Topo, which is really solid. All right, next up, so when we look at the Dark Broly stuff, there is a Dark Broly card, 2 cards I guess actually, that are specific to this ultimate deck, and we've already seen many ways that we can play different Dark Brolys, even the ones from set 11. So Dark Broly is Shadow Warrior. Again, keep in mind in this deck it's a 1-drop, unique, activate main, pay 1 of any color. If your leader card is black and your opponent has 3 or more energy, add up to 1 card from life to your hand, then play up to 1 Dark Broly card with energy cost of 6 or 7 from your deck on top of this card in active mode, then shuffle your deck. You can't play Dark Broly cards for the turn. Then the main one, at least in terms of this deck that you want to play, is Dark Broly Unbridled Destruction, which is also going to be great in Dark Broly builds as well, like pure Dark Broly builds. So this guy, instead of reading the whole thing, I'll basically tell you what he says. He's Deflect unique. You can EX evolve him for 2 over any Dark Broly of cost 2 or 6. He's also treated as black in all areas. Basically, when he's played, if your opponent's life's at 3 or less, he restands, so you can swing with your initial Dark Broly and then evolve him. He'll restand as long as your opponent's at 3 or more life. Your opponent either warps a card from their hand, drop area, and battle area. It has to be a battle card, by the way. If they choose not to do that, or if they choose not to meet those requirements, they have to crit 1 life. So this guy is a really cheap way to put your opponent in an awkward position where, again, your opponent gets the choice of how they're going to reap the negative benefit, but it's still a pretty strong effect on the way, especially for 2 energy. And then like we've seen before, there are many ways to play Dark Broly. So you can play a 1 of Uncontrollable Berserker, you can play a 1 of Realm Ravager, you can even play a 1 of the Dark Broly blocker And there are pretty effective ways to get those out onto the field. You can do it with the Buu we've seen, and you can do it with this next card we'll see. So Towa Rewriting History. This is a card that came out in expansion 14 that unfortunately does not come with the ultimate deck itself, but it should be relatively cheap to pick up, and you definitely want to include this in your Towa deck. So when this card's played, add up to 1 Dark Dragon Ball card from your deck or drop area to your hand, then shuffle your deck if you look through it. So keep in mind, the Dark Dragon Ball card we read that comes with the structure deck is searchable this way. Also, though, she can search any of the parasitic Dragon Balls because they all gain Dark Dragon Ball in all areas. So think about like the new Janemba stuff we're getting in set 12, new Turles stuff, the older Frieza Xeno stuff. She can search the parasitic Dragon Balls for all those different strategies. Activate main once per turn for 2 energy. If your leader card is black and you have 3 or more energy, so you cannot do this on turn 2, you can do it on turn 3. So this is one of the ways you can like go into your Majin Buu. So we'll keep reading. You choose 1 non-black Dark Dragon Ball card in your hand and place it in your drop area. Play up to 1 Dark Broly card or non-black battle card with Xeno in its character name and an energy cost of 4 or less from your deck or hand, then shuffle your deck if you look through it. So you can grab the Buu Xeno that we just talked about. There are some other cards from other strategies you can grab, like for example the 4-drop Janemba Dark Parasite, Turles Dark Parasite, Frieza Dark Infestation. If you're looking back like the set 10 stuff, this is one of the main enablers that allows you to play such a customizable deck, and it's really cool. So moving along here, I just mentioned how you can search or play from the deck that Janemba Dark Parasite with that Towa. So you don't have to play the full skill list chain. You don't have to play Janemba Bewitching Blow to include the stuff in your deck. So basically what you can do is you can play 3 or 4 copies of Janemba Dark Parasite. You can play 4 copies of Janemba Rampaging Demon. You use Towa to bring out Dark Parasite from the deck for a total of 3 energy. Maybe you played Towa on 1 and then later on you paid 2 to play Dark Parasite. You evolve this guy for 1, and that's a way you can apply a lot of pressure, especially crit pressure, and get some draw power. So it's generally all upside. The other great thing about teching this engine is that you can also play Senzu Bean, which depending on the matchup is, you know, better or worse. Like there are a lot of decks in set 12 that do spam like 15k 20k battle cards, and Senzu Bean is going to be great against those decks. It's really, you know, Senzu Bean really shines when your opponent is playing a lower to the ground, more spammy build. Against the taller threats, not so much, but you do have other things like the Buu we just saw that help you kind of mitigate your opponent's bigger threats from attacking your leader. Next up, guys, there are many green engines you can play with this strategy, and then you can obviously play Cell Xeno. It almost seems like Cell Xeno, I guess you could say it, Cell Xeno is one of the perfect cards to play in this strategy. I mean, we already have a 9-drop green yellow battle card, right? So if you can make the math work, that's one of the really easy ways to get into Cell Xeno. Then of course, like I said, with that 1-drop Towa, you can play your different Dark Dragon Balls, and then you can play Frieza Dark Infestation, you can play Turles Dark Parasite. Them plus the Slug doesn't quite get you to Cell Xeno, but you do have the 2-drop Lord Slug, and possibly some other 1-drops you can tech into the deck to make it work. The math is a little weird for Cell Xeno, at least when you're looking at these different Xeno cards, but you can make it work. You can search Cell Xeno, which obviously is a big plus. But besides that, the Lord Slug stuff that's also coming out in set 12 is pretty cool to look at, and it is more green stuff, which is kind of interesting that so much of it is green. But anyways, Lord Slug Dark Parasite is a really cool one of the tech. Even if you're not going to play a green base Towa build, it's a really cool one of the tech, because basically when you play it, if your opponent has 3 or more energy, you can either board wipe them or destroy their Unison. It is their choice, but if they don't have a Unison, you basically get to board wipe them in general. And then Lord Slug Out of Control, whether you're playing a blue base build or a green base build, I think this is the best card you can be playing off of your Majin Buu Xeno, because he's essentially another deadly defender. So all his cards in rest mode, your opponent can't attack leader cards or Unisons. So he also adds the benefit of protecting your Unison. He is a ginormous triple striker, so essentially for 3 energy you have the Buu as a 20k barrier and this as a 25k triple striker. No, he doesn't have barrier himself, but if he is removed, you can recur a Dark Dragon Ball from the drop area, which is definitely a nice benefit. But considering you got this guy for 3 energy, and your opponent still then has to deal with the Buu somehow before they can get at your leader, I mean, it's incredibly strong. It's really solid. One more thing I do want to mention, guys, before we wrap up the video, you can also search the new Buu / Janemba Xeno SCR thing from set 12. Basically it's the counter. If your leader is green or a Demon Realm race, it becomes a 3-drop counter. I'm playing more of like the blue based Towa. I'm playing with like the Janemba engine, so I'm not really playing all of the green stuff. So I'm not playing Cell Xeno, but the Buu SCR has been working well for me. I didn't include it in a picture here because honestly there's not a great image of it on the internet yet, so I didn't really want to hurt your guys' eyes with that. I figured I could just get away with mentioning it, but that's another great option for you as well. I've personally been liking the blue based Towa list, give you access to Bean. I think the Janemba engine is really solid, especially when you don't have to play all the skill list stuff, but I still do play 4 copies of Lord Slug Out of Control, and I'm sure I'll bring you guys a deck profile either on the Patreon or here on the channel one of these days to show you guys what I'm working with Towa. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I want to know in the comments below how you're messing around with Towa, what you think about it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.